Yo, what's going on guys? Rhys here from Stoic Pool, and in this video we're going to be making our own smart contract in the Marlowe playground. Let's get into it. Right guys, so we're in the home office, which is the spare bedroom of the flat, and this video is basically, we're going to be making a contract for my day job, which is a personal trainer. So basically, when this is going to be based on a client booking a session with me, and so that's going to be like the contract is our session that's been booked. Right guys, so when someone books a session with me, we've got a couple of terms. Okay, so the first one is it's within the week. Yeah, so we're just going to put that down, 7 days. Okay, and the reason we're recording this is because it's going to be like the duration of the contract. We'll just do it in blocks, but it'll be 7 days. So we'll just say 7 days, 7 blocks. Then the next thing is the cost, which is 50. So it's £50, but for the sake of the contract, we'll just call it 50 ADA. Okay, and then there are 3 basic outcomes that could happen in having a session with me. That we either have the session. So one is train, in which case the 50 ADA goes to coach. That's me. Then the second outcome is slightly different. They can rearrange. So the second one's rearrange, and in which case there is a cost associated with that because it affects my scheduling, it affects time that I have and my organizational and planning time. So plus it's a slot that someone else could have booked had they known in advance that this was going to happen. So what happens is that's 10 ADA to coach, and then the client will get 40 ADA returned. Okay, and then the last outcome is a cancellation. And so a cancellation basically is like within 24 hours you can let me know that you're not going to be able to make the session for whatever reason. I can be quite reasonable with this sometimes, but if you don't fit within those parameters, then it costs you. And the cost is half of the session. So for this, it's 3, cancellation. And for the cancellation, it's 25 ADA to coach and 25 ADA to client. And then that's the end of the contract. Okay, so this is basically it. This is the contract. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit clearer so you can see what's happening. Oh, we'll just go ahead in 3. And then this one we can go ahead in 3. Oh, head in 2, okay. Well, you can still see what's happening. Okay, let's make it head in 2 because that's kind of pasty. Right, so these are our outcomes. So the reason I've laid it out like this is because these are our like 3 different processes, like the 3 different observations that can happen within a contract. And so this is based on external information. So it's going to be an observation, if I could type, an observation. So we're gonna start with a deposit, that the session's booked, and that's gonna be the start of the contract. Okay, then we have a 7-day term. So this is gonna be a term, a 7-day term, and then it's based on the 3 observations. So we're gonna have to make a decision. We're gonna have to check something external, basically. So make an observation. Did the session happen? If this happened, then this is the result. If we trained, that's the result. If we rearranged, then that's the result. And if we cancel, then that's the result. Okay, so that means there's 3 choices, 3 potential outcomes. So there's an observation of 1, 2, 3, option 1, option 2, option 3. Okay, so we've got that basically there. Hopefully I don't mess this up because that would be a little bit embarrassing. So the first thing we do is we go party, 1 role. Then we go another party, another role, because there's a coach and the client. So this one's going to be client. This one's going to be coach. And what I recommend you do with your smart contracts is you get all the kind of information in first, like all the inputs and the outputs and the processes, and then you kind of build off that. Because once you have all the things laid out here, then you can go, right, okay, I need this to work, I need this to work. Whereas if you just start from the top and work your way down, it's easy to make mistakes. And as you're about to find out, it's easy for me to make mistakes anyway. Okay, so we've got 2 roles, but we need one role is going to be a payee. Oh, no, we don't want to count. So we're going to be a payee is one of the parties, and that's going to be coach as well. So we're going to duplicate this. We need it to be coach because the client is the one who holds the money in the contract, not the coach. Okay, so the role of the coach is just to be the payee. Okay, then we're going to need to have a bound. So the bounds are basically the parameters of the observation, like the options. So it's going to be 1 to 3 because there's train, rearrange, or cancellation. So that's going to have to be there. I'm just going to put that there for now. I don't know why this keeps sliding down. Values. So the values are going to be constants. So we're going to have a 50 ADA value. We're going to have a constant of 10 ADA because we're only really going to be paying the coach in this contract. Okay, and I'll explain why in a second. The other value is going to be 25. Okay, so there are the 3 options. So we got ADA goes to coach, 50 to ADA, 10 ADA goes to coach for rearrange, and 25 ADA goes to coach for cancellation. Okay. So the reason that we're only paying the coach is because, again, the client is holding the ADA in the contract, not the coach. So that's where the money goes. And we're going to have to define what the token is, and that's going to be ADA all the time. Okay. So we're going to have this contract, this kind of logic needs to happen. Again, all the contracts are basically just logic. So if you know much about electronics and circuits, then you'll understand what logic gates are. And they're basically just processes where they ask, is this, then this, or if this and this, then this happens, you know, like if, and, like not and, etc. Not, nor, you know, all these different logic gates is basically the processes going on with this. So there's like a flow of information. Every time we hit a point, it asks a question, what's the outcome, this or this, and then it moves to the next one, is this the outcome, this or this, etc. Okay, so we got the observation. Okay, then we're going to if observation this. So now we need to define what the observation is. So we're going to go here. Is that right? No, that's not right. Delete that. What the observation are. So if value of the observation, which is the bounds here between 1 and 3, is equal to whatever the thing is. So I'm going to put this here. And then we're going to have to go on. We're going to need more constants. And so this is going to be 1, and then we're going to have another constant, which is going to be 2, and then we're going to have another constant, which is going to be 3. So this is 3, this is 2, and this is 1. So these are essentially our 3 observations. This one, and then we do that again. Bam. 3 of these. So that goes in there, that goes in there, and this one goes in here. Okay, right, so we've got our values, our observations equal to our 3 options. Okay, but then we need to define what the value is. And so what our value is a choice. So it's the choice made by role client. So it depends what the client decides to do. So I'm going to put that there, then I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to duplicate it again. Just so we have it 3 times in each of these, I'm going to pop that in there. I'm going to pop that in there, and then I'm going to pop this one in there. Okay, so now we have our 3 choices, our 3 observations, like the 3 options that we have. So now that they're defined, we can go and make the rest of the contract. So here we go, if observation blah, 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 we'll say value 1, then something happens, which is an action. So we got, then pay. So we're just going to do it with one of the choices for now. So choice 1, if choice 1 happens, then we got to pay the role of the coach by the role of the client. Choice 1 is to have the session, so constant 50 because you pay the full cost, which is here, option 1 here. Pays the client the pays the coach 50 ADA. So this is assuming that they have the session. So that goes in there. All right. And then we go bum, 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 bum. Yeah, and then cool. So what we've got here is if the observation choice 1 happens, which is to train, then pay the coach 50 ADA by the client. Okay, so that then closes out the contract. So then we need to put a close in there. All right, so this is choice 1 of the contract. But if choice 1 doesn't happen, so if observation, then this, else, so if not, then this. And this is going to be a slightly different thing. It's going to be another observation, because if choice 1 isn't made, then we've got to ask, has choice 2 been made or has choice 3 been made? So we're going to say if observation 2 has been made, then I'm going to duplicate this one because it's the same, like we've got to pay someone, but the values are going to be quite different, slightly different. So I'm going to delete this block. And if choice 2 is made, then to rearrange, then 10 ADA goes to the coach for the time. So that goes there from the client, continue as closed. Okay, and what that means is the 40 ADA will then be, the contract's closed and the 40 ADA will be returned back to the client. Okay, so that's this. I'm just gonna move all these up a little bit. It always moves down for me and I don't know why. Okay, so, right, that's done. So the last thing we've got to do then is figure out option 3. So if observation 1, then pay like that. That means we trained. Otherwise, observation 2, if observation 2, then do this, or observation 3. So then we're just going to duplicate this again. Oop, delete, no, duplicate. If not, pay the coach something else. So if option 1 and option 2 didn't happen, then that means they cancelled. Okay, but here we don't put this choice in because it's the only one left. So it's the only choice that's possible. So we don't actually need to put that information in. Okay, because it assumes that this choice has been made. All right, and then, so this is option 1, this is option 2, and this is option 3. So then I basically just pop this in onto else, because what we have here is we have if option 1, then close the contract. That this happens and close the contract. If option 2, then this happens and close the contract. Otherwise, this happens and close the contract. So that then completes the 3 options. So that can go in there. And that is essentially our contract. These are the 3 outcomes. Okay, what I'm gonna do is delete this. I'm gonna leave this here just so we can see what that actually refers to, because then we've got the 3 points. Okay, now we need to define how this starts. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go contract, and we need to create a deposit. So we need to start the contract somehow. So we're gonna say when, I'm gonna move this over here, and move this over here. So we've got a bit of space here. Okay, so we've got a when. So this is basically going to kick off the contract. So when an action is a deposit. So we wait, start of the term is 50 ADA deposited into the contract, which is a session being booked. So we go, oh, I've deleted all my parties. Roll, give me a role, give me a client. So when deposit by client, gonna delete this because this is the one we want. Duplicate, sorry, not delete. Duplicate all 3 of these. So the client deposits into the client account in the contract ADA, and he deposits 50 ADA, doesn't he? Because that's how much it costs. So we wait until this happens. And when this happens, that's the start of the thing. Now we have a term of these contracts, which is 7 days. So when you book a thing, it's got to happen within 7 days. So just put slot 7. After slot 7, so if 7 slots happened or 7 days happen, and we haven't had a session, then that generally means that it's the coach's fault and not the client's fault. Because if it was the client's fault, then one of these things would have happened. But if that's not happened, if we haven't had our session, or one of these 3 outcomes hasn't happened, then we close the contract and everything gets returned, which doesn't mean anything to the coach, obviously, because I haven't received anything, but the deposit by the client for the contract, for the training sessions, gets returned. So that goes there. Okay, so we have our setup. And now what we need to do is we need to create the observation. Okay, so what we're gonna have to do is, we go actions, oh no, we go oh yeah, so actions, choice. So now we have a choice name, and the choice basically defines what these results are based on the observation. So remember this observation between 1 and 3, that goes in here. That's our choice bounds. So the client, basically, we're going to leave this as name, but this is choosing whether to train, to rearrange, or to cancel. So that are the 3 options. So we go 1, 2, 3, and that's 1, 2, and 3 by here. Okay, so we're going to put this, so just like we defined when a deposit happens, we also have to define when a choice happens. So we go here, and then we go choice, when. After slot, again, 7. Okay. Now, if they do the deposit and book the session, and then none of these choices are made, then again, just like here, we assume that the training session hasn't happened, and because none of these choices have been made, then we assume that it's actually my fault, being the coach, like I've had to postpone it, or we haven't booked it in properly, or we haven't been able to do it in the time that we wanted, and so that closes the contract, which means the money is returned back to the client. Okay, so these are our new options. So we've got when a choice is made by choice owner, and the choice owner is the client, not the coach. Continue as these observations. Okay, so now we've got all our elements. Yeah, we've got the deposit happening, we have the choice, which is creating this observation, and then we have the outcomes of each of the observations. Okay, and that's it. That's basically the whole contract. So now what we have to do is put this together. So we go when, so basically the way this works is we put our observations into choice. So when the choice is made, these are our observations. Like these are when the choice is made, the client is choosing between 1, 2, and 3, and continue as observation 1, or observation 2, or observation 3. That's basically how this works. Okay, and this all happens after the client has deposited. So then this lives in here, and that is the whole contract. Yeah, so I'm just going to move this back down here so you can see what belongs here. Okay, this actually has no function in the contract because it doesn't need to be. It's the last option, the option 3. So we don't need to actually define this in the contract because it's otherwise do this. Okay, but I've just put this in so you guys can see what's happening here, and for myself as well, because I'm a bit of a moose sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to just pop that into the contract, and then we're le done, which is French, in case you were wondering. So contract, when this happens, when this happens, when this happens, pop this down by here. Okay, now this thing here, I know it's going to be just sitting here floating, but because it isn't part of the contract, it shouldn't really affect how the contract runs. Okay, we've got a time limit. Yeah, after slot 10, after slot 7 close, after slot 7 close. We've got our choices, we've got our client coach, I think we've got it right. I think we've done it. So now is the moment of truth. We send to simulator. So I click send to simulator. We've got our Blockly thing, and here it is in a much easier to read, less easy to build, but easier to read format. So here we're going to go on logs, because what happens is looking at the current state doesn't really tell us what's going on, but logs gives us the actual results of everything. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at the top here. So simulation has not started, so we're going to say initial slot 1, start simulation. So now we have choices. I'm actually just going to bring this in a little bit. Oh, well that's no good. I'm going to bring this out a little bit. Right, so we have our choices here. So first off, participant client has a choice. So they're going to deposit 50 ADA, which is booking a session with me. So bam, add that. Okay, and then it's going to be a day, just saying. So we're going to pop our day in. Now you can see deposit 50 ADA in our action, roll the client into the client's part of the contract. And then we're going to say participant client. We're going to make a choice name. And this is actually a choice to train, but instead of just writing it out a bunch of times, then I'm just going to call it choice name. So does he choose value 1? So we're going to say in this at this time, we're going to choose value 1. So choose value 1, which means we trained. So that's going to close the contract. As you can see, close. And if you look down here, we've got actions, deposit 50 ADA into the client part of the contract, participant client chooses value 1, which means we had our training session, and then the 50 ADA goes to the coach, and that finishes up the contract. Okay, that's good, that's good. Now, what if the client chooses value 2, which is here to rearrange? So I'm going to go choose value 2, add. So what happens here is the client deposits the 50 units of ADA to book the session. Then the client chooses value 2, which means that we basically have to rearrange the session for whatever reason. And what that does is that means that 40 units of ADA go back to the client, and the contract pays 10 units of ADA to the coach, okay, which is for rearranging the contract, rearranging a training session. Because it takes up the slot, it costs them money. Excuse me. Okay, so undo, that's good. What if they choose slot 3, which is they cancel the session? Let's find out. So here we go, deposit 50 units of ADA as the client. Client chooses value 3, which is a cancellation. The contract pays 25 to the client, so the client gets half of the deposit back, half the training session back, and the contract pays half 25 units of ADA to the coach. Okay, so that's what happens when you have a late cancellation, is it basically costs you half a session, and then you get half your money back. Okay, cool. And that's not our only option. So the other option is, what if nothing happens? What if none of these choices are made? What if we don't train, if we don't rearrange, or we don't cancel the session? So instead of making these choices, we're just going to move to slot 7. Bam. So here we go in actions. You can see the contract's closed, and we say deposit 50 units of ADA to client as client. The contract pays 50 units of ADA to the participant. So after 7 days, we haven't had our training session, and so the 50 units of ADA gets returned to the client, okay? And that's it. So that's our contract. It's a very simple contract. I know I've gone around the long way of explaining it, but I just wanted everyone to understand 100% exactly what's happening, exactly what elements of the contract are. So I'm just gonna go undo, undo, undo here. Undo, undo, undo. So we can have another quick look at it. I mean, I think I've gone past as far as I can. So view in Blockly, so here we are again. So I'm just gonna run through it once more. So we've got when the deposit happens by the client, which is booking a session. Then we wait until for a choice name to happen, which I'm actually just gonna change to train. Oh, this might actually blow my mind. So these are our options. What if I change the constant? Can I change that? Constant train, does that work? No. All right, never mind. So basically, if the client makes a choice is to train or not to train. The choice owner is the client. So the client makes that decision. Then, based on there are 3 potential outcomes, which are the bounds of these things. And then we continue as if observation 1 happens. So if we have our training session, then the client pays the coach the 50 ADA. If observation 1 doesn't happen, then the contract goes, well, does observation 2 happen? And if observation 2 happens, then the coach pays the client, the client pays the coach 10 ADA, which is based on rearranging the session, and 40 ADA gets returned back to the client. Otherwise, we assume that that choice 3 has happened, and if choice 3 happens, then the coach gets paid 25 ADA because the client has cancelled the session. Okay, and then it closes the contract. If none of those things happen after 7 slots, which is like 7 days, then we close the contract and the money gets returned to the client. The same happened, and yeah, and that's it, guys. I hope that was clear enough for you. I'm actually going to save this because I basically want to be holding all these contracts and building up a little library of contracts for future. Oh, create an account, create a GitHub account. Right, you don't need to see this. Guys, that is it for this video. It's a very simple coaching contract. I hope it makes sense. If you have any questions or comments, leave any that you've got in the box below. I'm more than happy to help you out with Marlowe. Yeah, guys, as always, give us a like, subscribe to the channel for more Cardano-based tricks and tips and information. I'm going to be doing more examples of smart contracts coming up very soon, as well as exploring some other elements of Cardano. Got loads of stuff coming on, including staking information and rewards and how all that happens. If you're looking for somewhere to delegate to Stoic Pool. Delegate to Stoic Pool, help us make our first block. And otherwise, guys, I will catch up with you in the next one, and keep in touch with yourselves.